Hello, my friends. You see me wearing a scarf here. This is how far I've come from my New York City roots. It is about 70 degrees in California, and that is too cold. Okay, so today on Like Me, we are talking to Olivia Howell, the founder of Fresh Starts Registry. It is a divorce registry, and yes, that is a thing. Olivia and her sister Jenny created it as a hub for support during what I can say from personal experience is one of the most challenging and potentially isolating times in one's life. You absolutely must check her out. She is a wise woman, and her channels bring me joy and connection on the daily. But the main reason I wanted to have Olivia on is because she was the very first reader, or at least the first reader I knew of my website, even way before it was called Ramshackle Glam. She was a social media participant and fan during those heady beta years, and she reached out to me, which led to a conversation that is going on 15 years long now. A few years into my career, I realized I needed support managing the business, and Olivia was literally the only person I could think of to do the job. She just knew the industry and Ramshackle Glam in particular, inside out and backwards, absolutely as well, if not better than I did. So I hired her as essentially my right-hand woman, helping with everything from content to client outreach. And then one day after my fancy influencer agency let me go, I called her and said, um, okay, so do you want to be my manager? And she did. And she was for many years. This is a woman who not only has seen me through virtually every moment of my own online journey, but has a near obsessive fascination with the industry that I obviously relate to. Olivia is the OG extremely online woman, and her journey from reader to partner to tremendously successful creator in her own right is one for the books. Well, Olivia, welcome to Like Me. I wanted to put you on. You were the very first guest that I wanted to have on because what I'm exploring in this podcast is, as a person who was very early in social media and saw the beginnings, you were literally on my personal journey since day one. Pre-Ramshackle Glam, pre-anything, you were there. So I want to ask you first, what did the start of your engagement with social media look like? Like, I didn't even know it existed when I first started doing it, really.
Well, first of all, hi. I'm really happy
Hi.
to be here. You've changed my life, so the trajectory of my career is because of you, 100%.
Back at you.
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. I was always a very online person, right? So I was in AOL chat rooms, I was on Instant Messenger, I was on MySpace. Right, our generation, I'm just a tiny bit younger than you. We grew up really like evolving with these platforms. I think, we really needed an outlet, right? We kind of grew up with these parents who kind of listened to what we were saying, but really with one ear open. And we were the journalers. We were the kids that wanted to get our voices heard, right? Many of us were theater kids. We wanted to just get our emotions into the world. And when we started to find each other, it became a really big fucking deal. So my journey in social media got started really when I was 10, 12. We got our first computer, really. And
Really?
I was on AOL Instant Messenger as soon as I could be on. And I loved
I
it.
was too. I feel like I used it to more pernicious ends. I was
Oh,
a little bit
yes.
of a bad
Me too.
girl on
I was a
AIM.
little
I was
slutty
I was
aimer.
a slutty
Slutty
shoulder
aimer.
rolls.
I'm gonna get us shirts that say that. Yeah. And then it evolved. Obviously Instagram, and I've been on. I was on. We were on Twitter since the time it was founded. And
Mhm.
I think I stumbled across you because I think read Julia Allison's stuff, and then you joined On Society, and I liked you because you were real. Like, you were like obviously ramshackle. You were not a bullshitter. You were fun. You were silly. You got married young and had this like really cool lifestyle. And so I just, I followed you and your trajectory. At the time I was teaching and I was freelance writing. So I was doing both. And then when I had my son, I taught for another year. And then honestly, you were so inspiring to me just reading your posts. Like everything you did, because well, I don't know if we're allowed to say his name, but Indy is a little bit older
Oh, my
than
son.
Weston.
Yeah.
Yeah, than Weston. And so your breastfeeding journey and this and that, and I left um teaching and started a social media agency, and I started doing social media for local businesses in New York, and then that grew and grew and grew. And I think you and I have a similar work ethic where it's like we just are really friendly and easy to work with, and so people enjoy working with us. And so I got pulled into like TV shows and movies, and then I got into influencer management, and I really just made up a career. Really literally made it up.
You
I'm a big
did. I
sister. I made it
watched
up. Right. And so
you just built it from
right.
nothing.
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 And I remember distinctly we had become online friends, and I remember reaching out to you and saying, I think there can be things that you're doing differently on social media. Can I help you? And you were like, yes. And then I just basically became your right hand person. And I remember like it was wild to me because I really, really looked up to you. And like when you went out on the boat with your dad for like 2 weeks and you were like,
Yeah.
I'm
Take
not,
over
yeah,
Ramshackle
you were like,
Glam.
I'm in no
Wow.
contact. You're like, you're handling everything. And then I distinctly remember you calling me and saying, my influencer agency is letting me go. And I have chills every time I think about it. And you said, it's me and you. And I was like, let's do this. And like, we did it. And
We did.
you taught me everything I know. Like everything I know, I learned from Ramshackle Glam. Like truly. And and then you got divorced a little bit before me. And then so it's like I've just followed your journey, this whole way. And you've been in everything, the mental health journey, the anxiety medication, like I don't know. I just follow your footsteps. You go and I follow.
The the joy that I've gotten from seeing your success, I mean, real success. Olivia, you started Fresh Starts Registry shortly after you got divorced, maybe a
Yeah,
year after you
2020
got
about yeah,
divorced.
yep. Hmm.
And watching it explode has been one of the true joys in my
Oh,
life. Like
thank
it's
you.
just, well, you're so much better at it than I ever was. Truth. I mean, like you really know what you're doing, and
Well,
take an analytic perspective as opposed to just like wee like winging it,
oh,
which is my strategy.
that's
Um,
why I was
you
around.
know,
Yeah.
it's interesting what you said about like early online content. Something about it the way that it changed to performance so quickly was really interesting to me, because I remember back when I first started blogging with Non Society, the two other women that were my cohorts, it was things like, oh, there's a camera, drinks down, literally put
Uh,
your drinks
uh,
down. We can't have that in a
right,
photo.
right.
And there were morality clauses with early clients. I really chafed against that through my entire career, uh, because I guess I just didn't understand the appeal, or like, why would anyone watch if it's not real?
Real.
But
Yeah.
at the same time, there is that necessary separation. Like nobody that reads my website knows everything, of course, because there's stuff you have to
Yeah,
protect. But
but
how
but
did you see? Yeah.
no, I was gonna say, but you grew your brand in such an odd time of history, right? So, and you're like, you know, you're not a political person, I will say, like, and I think like I remember we encountered some issues with brands that we were like, we don't feel comfortable posting this. There was like a lot of stuff, and um, I think it's just been an interesting time to be a person on the internet for
How
sure.
do you think that that's changed, or has it?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely happens now, but I think um you were like the bellwether of it, really, truly. Like you were like ahead of the game when it came to speaking your mind about this stuff, and I think that you got some of the early like repercussions because of it too.
Oh, big time. I heard from a woman. I don't know if you recall Keiko Lynn. She was
Uh-huh.
a wonderful, wonderful beauty blogger. I believe she still is. And I had written about the trolling experience of the early 2010s
Yeah.
when it was really out of control.
Mhm.
That's going to be a whole episode, or I don't know, 5 episodes later on, because I have a lot to say about this. But she said when Get Off My Internet started, she was a target. Cupcakes and Cashmere was a target.
Mhm.
I mean, everybody was a
Yeah.
target. And you could tell when they wrote about you because your
Web
views would
traffic. Yeah.
skyrocket. And
Yeah.
you'd all of a sudden get this flood of like, how do you think you are? Like really like
Yeah.
wild. And I was like, oh, I guess they wrote about me. Let's see
Yep.
what was today. But
Yep.
she said, Keiko said, as she was really destroyed by it, but she was like, I don't get why they go after you
Yeah.
so bad when you are literally just like a human who's not really that. Honestly, I'm not that interesting. It's just
They're
like a chick
jealous. I
living
think
her
people were
life.
jealous. They were jealous of you.
Mm, well, it always, I mean, trolling always comes from something that's sad in the person and something that's missing that it's always. It's like
Yeah.
there's a lack and they react to that. But the trauma of that is something that I don't know that that kids today understand. Like my
Right.
kids, when I tell them about trolling, they're like, well, they're just like haters. Who cares?
Right.
And I'm like, oh, I cared.
Well, because here's the thing is that our nervous systems were not made for trolls, right? And so like to you it was like somebody attacking your family, right? And coming
It
after your
was.
children, right? And like fit like you were so worried as you should have been. And we're not we don't talk about what it's like to be an influencer or even like a minor celebrity and have the attention on you and the negative attention and how it affects you. And we've both been through this in major ways. And it is a real mind fuck. And you do have to like, I think to get to a certain level of fame, you just have to like not care at a certain point.
Hmm.
But it does that middle space where you're learning to not care can really mess you up.
It really can. And at the time, it was very different then because I don't know that brands now would be like, oh, they said something mean about the person who's promoting us on the internet. They'd be like,
Right.
uh-huh. But at the time, brands were like, whoa. I
Mm.
remember when my first book came out and I got flooded with negative reviews based on a Get Off My Internet's post. Before the book, it was the morning it was released, so nobody
Oh,
had the
uh-huh,
book, which
uh-huh.
I understand it wasn't like, War and Peace, but like it wasn't,
Yeah,
worthy of that much ire.
right.
And my publisher called me and was like, we are freaking out. What is going on? And I was like, it's trolls. And she was like, what's that?
Yeah.
Why is this happening? And it very nearly torpedoed my next book deal.
Uh, uh,
And so the consequences were real in a way, but, or not in a way, they were very real. And that's, I think that, the current generation of influencers it's so different.
it's so
And
different.
that's why I want to do this podcast, because it's like so much happened so quickly,
Well,
right?
I'm gonna be honest. We were like the freaks. We were
Yeah.
like the weirdos, like that were like putting our life out there. And I think people did not understand what we were doing. They didn't understand how we were making money or where the money was going or any of it. And so there was a
Mm-mm.
lot of hate for and I think a lot of jealousy for creating a career, right? That you genuinely looked like you enjoyed and creating a family and
Getting to spend
ro-
time with them while
yeah, and
while
making money at
working.
home, right? And like
Mhm.
now obviously it's a whole creator economy that there's tons of stay-at-home moms that are making money and that started with you. I mean, that was
Ugh,
really like, there was I mean, we can count on our hands the amount of people that were getting brand deals back then,
yeah.
right? There was almost nobody cuz brands didn't even know what to do with us. They were
No,
confused. Yeah.
they would be like, "What do you think?" And I was like,
Right.
"I don't know. I mean, I can make it up," and I did. But having like Dove walk in and be like,
Right.
"Hey, could you tell us what you want to do for a year-long ad campaign?" And I'm like, "Okay, I am not qualified to do that, but sure." And it was great, and it was super fun, and I saw that changed as time went on.
Yes.
They come to you with like, here's our series of asks. It's very clear. They want this language. They want trackable links, all that stuff. But it was really fun in the beginning because you
Yeah, it taught
just
you a
could,
lot. Yeah.
yeah, you could just do what felt right to you and your audience, and it was often correct. I
Right.
think a lot about. I want to ask you about the feminist element of how you've seen things change because something I've been reckoning with recently is that it felt at the time deeply feminist. I can support myself, I can raise children without spending too much on childcare. I could talk about whatever, all that stuff that we've been discussing. But when I think about it in context now, I'm like, who is benefiting? Because I essentially aged out of the algorithm in terms of like there's 20 million people with more followers than me and who are getting the brand deals, and that's fine. But there there was a lot of taking advantage of labor, and even though some people, I was being paid well, when I think about what I was doing for that, it's a lot. Like, here, come use my home for free. I'll do all the product. Like, there's a lot of stuff that companies got away with not paying for because you had this like eager young thing like ready to go. What do you think about that?
That's a great question. I have a lot of feelings on that. I think that, again, it goes back to brands did not know how to handle influencers or what to do with them. And on the management side, I ended up, you were my first real management position, like person, influencer. And then I ended up managing about, over the course of a couple of years, 20 influencers. And then I stopped because it was so much work. The hardest part was following up and getting paid because brands did not want to pay influencers. And so I think in theory, I absolutely agree with you. And it is a feminist act, right? It's sticking it to the man, it's making money from home, it's getting to,
Yeah.
promote things that you want to promote. But there is a labor issue for sure. And I have also, it's like such a both and, right? And I have seen it allowed you to get divorced, it allowed you to pay your bills. And, like, I know when I had my, second son, I was deep in the baby world by then, and I got most of the items for him sent to me, right? Like, I didn't
Oh,
have to buy
oh
a
yeah.
Dot, right? And so, like, it saved me money. It's like, and so there's so many great elements to it, but I think influencers were absolutely, and still are, taken advantage of all of the time, especially women.
Mhm.
And obviously, it gets into a much bigger conversation about the children too of these
Oh,
people, right? And like that whole thing, which I think the tide is hopefully turning a little bit on that. But I think that yes, in theory, it's a wonderful idea because let's get money into the women's hands.
mhm.
And how different is it, I guess, than like a Tupperware party in a way, right? Like you're still at home making money, but the people that were in charge were very much aware that they could take advantage of the situation.
1000%. Like the show I did, Jordan in the House, and I'm not saying that it was a wonderful experience. It truly was. And I was paid, but when I think about what I was paid for 2 seasons of a show while also doing directing, writing it, producing it,
Yeah.
all the product pulls, whatever, I'm like, "Whoa, girl."
And
You
you were
know,
not at
like,
home, right? And that's you weren't
no, and I have to
home.
pay for childcare during that time
Right.
and all that stuff. But yeah, but I also I do feel like there's an element of chewing up influencers and spitting them out. When I look at almost all of my cohorts from back then, I not many of them are still doing this because how? I don't even know. My
Right.
son edits things in 20 seconds. And I'm like, I don't know even know how. I had to learn how to do frickin' YouTube for this. I'm too old to learn new technology. I don't want
I know I
to.
don't even do
I'm not,
TikTok,
not
Jordan.
YouTube,
No.
Riverside Studios. Yeah. I
Jordan's
was
been
like,
on YouTube forever.
I've been on
um
YouTube. I have been on YouTube forever. Not this, though.
no, but I don't do TikTok. I like couldn't get into
I
TikTok
can't
and
do
I'm
TikTok.
40. So
I
I'm like,
can't
no,
do it.
I'm done. No, I don't
Mm-mm.
even have it on my phone. I think that, ultimately what it comes down to, Jordan, is that it's no different than the celebrity industry. Right? So the people that are going to do well are skinny and blonde and white, and they're
Mhm.
going to stick around for a while. And then there's always going to be more. And, there's a lot of discussion about, DEI in the creator economy and, inclusivity. And there was very little inclusivity in the early days of blogging.
Oh,
Yeah. So,
none.
and like body diversity and stuff like that.
Nope.
And so, you know, let's be honest, like who has always sold products for brands is pretty young things, right? And so they're going to want pretty young things, and they're just going to keep there's always more. And so, yeah.
Where do you see where or have you seen how people have pivoted? How have you seen those early creators, any that you know of, sort of spin off into different things?
That's a great question. Some of them go on to become things like teachers
Mhm.
or teach writing or marketing. A lot of them become CMOs or marketing professionals or social media agencies, right? They will grow their own agency. Some of them went on to do management positions, right, for other influencers, things like that. A lot of them just went back to being stay-at-home moms. And but it was hard because I remember you spent years debating what to do. Years,
I'm
right?
still debating what to do.
Right.
Truly, it's because it I saw the writing on the wall so long ago, but it was like a slow motion train. Like, this is coming,
Mhm.
where you're going to age out, and it with the odd collection of skills that all of us acquired,
Yeah.
it can be very difficult to translate that into a more, big girl job.
Yeah.
Trust me, I've tried. People,
Yeah.
I'm like, I think I'm appropriate to be at this executive level position because I've been really doing this for a long
Yeah.
time and successfully, and
Yeah.
I've never worked in an office. They don't get that, so
No,
they're
and
like,
there's so
huh?
many like really weird skills, like, and like all the little things, and like it's you sound crazy when you
You
explain
sound
what you
great.
do.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
send you my resume. It's bananas. It's like,
Right.
who is this person?
I mean,
What
I
does she do?
understand. Yeah.
Yours is the same, I'm
It's the
sure.
same.
Well,
When people
you did a really good job segueing
I
into with Fresh Starts.
I did, and we still do marketing, and I well, it's funny because now I've segued more into doing PR for people. So I do PR, and then obviously Fresh Starts, and my because we are bootstrapped, so my side hustle is PR instead of social. Because I could, but social media for me was the same thing. I could not do more social media for brands. I was like, I'm gonna lose my mind. It was so much, and I saw myself aging out of that. I was like, I'm not gonna keep up with the trends on social media.
No.
So we had to figure out like, so then I went into like business coaching and all of that stuff. But like, it's so, and I've talked about this with a lot of other creators. Like, how do you explain to somebody like, oh yeah, I was at like this celebrity's apartment filming like a thing, and then I went here and I was writing a blog post, and it's like, but you can basically talk to anybody. You could sell anything, right? You could do PR, you could do marketing, but
I
how do you
can't.
explain it? You
because
could.
because also there's the reckonings that come with aging, that things like understanding how damaging capitalism is
Well,
on a fundamental level has made it really challenging to want to do that. And I
yeah,
would absolutely. Girl needs, to pay her mortgage, but it's not something that
yeah.
I would feel comfortable
No, and
seeking out.
you've struggled with that. I
I
know.
have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, working with like a Walmart or a I don't know, Amazon or whatever. Like, it's
Yeah.
you are participating. You're not only buying into it yourself, you are actively trying to sell this thing that you don't really feel good about to other people. And the storytelling, I feel, has disappeared more or less. Would
Yeah.
you say that's accurate?
Totally. 100%. Yeah.
Because
Mhm.
I considered myself, when I started, a storyteller who did brand integrations and had fun doing them and telling the
Yep.
story of that brand.
Yep.
But
Yep.
now it's just brand,
Yeah. Mhm.
buy the thing.
Yeah.
What did you, besides the having to follow up with for money, which, being an
Yeah.
accounting manager on top of managing social media people sounds like a nightmare.
Mhm.
Um, what did you, what stood out to you the most about being, managing social media clients,
For
both
social
brands and people?
Yeah, so it was similar and different. So with brands, a brand would come to us and like, and we, let's say a makeup brand, and they would say, we want social media. My sister came on board in 2020, and she helped because thank God, because she's an actual graphic designer. And so we would design, depending on what the retainer was, 4 days of posts, 5 days of posts. We would write the copy, we would post it. It was so much work. But I loved it because for me, it was a creative outlet. I love to write,
Hmm.
obviously. And so it was like, and I love marketing. Like my heart, I'm a natural marketer. Now, for influencers, it was different because the way that I kind of created the influencer management that I didn't, and by the way, when we started working together in that capacity, there was one influencer management company, which was the one you were with.
Hmm.
And
Digital
that was
brand
it.
architects.
Right.
Yeah.
There was no others. And so
Nope.
now there's now there's tons and tons. So I didn't take a retainer. I just took a commission, and I would seek out different sponsorships. Things would come to you, right? And so then basically I would be looped in, and I would get on the phone. I would talk to them. I would talk about what you're capable of doing and the photos. And it was a shit ton of work, but I loved it.
Shit ton of
But see,
work.
I loved it, but I ended up working for some people that were really not nice to me. And then I was like, oh, like you don't get how much work
Yeah,
this
that's
is
sort of
for.
what I was asking. Are
Yeah, no,
influencers
there was
awful to work with? Yes.
some
Right?
yes, some no, and some yes
Okay.
and some no. And there was some, I will say there was, the majority of them were lovely. There were some of them that truly didn't understand how much work it was. And so I remember, and it was only me, right? So like, I remember there was a girl I was working with who had a cooking blog and still around, and she was fine. And then there was always this like conversation, you'll understand, with influencer stuff with, is it going to be exclusive to the brand or is it not exclusive to the
Right.
brand? And if it is, how much more are you going to charge? Blah, blah, blah. So whatever, she would create a recipe for a brand and they wanted exclusivity. And I screwed up once and forgot to charge them what they had said for the exclusivity. Okay, you can go back and charge them in. And she was so nasty to me about it,
Oh,
and then basically fired me because she was like, well, you screwed up, that kind of a thing. And then there was a guy who's still a big influencer. He's a parenting influencer. And it's so interesting. I'll tell you who he is off camera, but
I know.
he,
I know who he
yeah,
is.
he was really, really, he's still really famous and everybody loves him and they think he's really friendly and nice. And he was horrible to me. And he had Crayola came to him and said, we want to do a brand campaign. And so I negotiated the whole campaign, got the product sent for his kids, got the money, the whole thing. He was late to every Zoom meeting. He did not provide the assets on time. And then called me and said, I don't know why I'm giving you commission for this. All of the sponsorship deals are coming in because of him, he said. And I'm just looping you in. Like, you're not really doing anything. And I was like,
Who do you think
wow.
is right?
Wow. Right. Like,
Wow.
so there was like a lot of, and then like there were certain influencers that didn't get you the assets in time or didn't listen to there were rules, right? Like they would
Yeah.
do this or that. So it was just, and I
And
really
you're the
thought,
one getting
I'm
shit on by
right.
the
And
brands because
I
they're
and
not
I
going to yell at the influencer, right?
no, and right, and I did love it. Like there was something about it that made me feel very like, I don't know, excited, and it was like the dopamine hit, and I'm getting to work with all these different people and brands. And honestly, some of those brands I still talk to and I still work with, and
Yeah.
it was great networking. But there's a big difference between working with somebody like you and working with somebody who I didn't really know as well, and they were just in it for the money, quite honestly, right? They were
Sure.
like, I'm not, and it got ridiculous at a point. And I think even you and I used to talk about this, right? Because at the time you were charging a couple $1,000s, right, for
Mhm.
a blog post because you had a huge amount of web traffic, and that was the standard for me, right? So I went by
I
that
think
because that's what I knew.
that was pretty like
Right.
what
Right. So
people
then I would
charged at
work
the
with,
time. Yeah.
right. So I would work with other creators who had much smaller platforms, and they would be like, I need $6,000 for 2 Instagram posts. And I'm like, girl, it's not going to
Girl.
happen. Right. Like whatever it was.
Sorry. I remember
No.
DBA would my agent at DBA would come to me and be like, "Could you just post this tweet for this brand?" And like a brand I'm working with, and she's like, "Can you just do this extra tweet because one of the other influencers on the campaign was like, well, they need to pay me an extra blah, 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 for one more tweet." And I was like, "Yeah, girl, I got you. Tweet
Well,
Done. It's,
right.
I mean, come on now.
I'm going to tell you the moment I decided to leave influencer marketing, because I will remember it forever, is that, and you were part of this in a good way, is that there was in a good way. I was working for a woman who was a reality TV star, and I'm going to just be honest, now she has completely converted to fundamentalist Christian mama. She was a Jewish woman, and it is very odd.
That
And
is very odd.
and I was working for her, and we were getting okay deals because she had a big following at the time. And a women's shelter, a DV shelter, came and wanted her to post about them in an Instagram story, and she would not do it unless they paid her. And I remember being literally sick to my stomach. And you were like, "Yeah, go ahead, post whatever you want on my account." And I was like, "Okay, of course." And like, I remember being like, "Are you serious? You won't post about a women's shelter unless they pay you?" And I was like, "I got to get out of this industry."
Yeah. Well, that's where the difference between like standing up for yourself goes into Looney Tunes world.
Yeah.
Like, yes, absolutely know your worth, etc. But
I think that's what happens.
That is what happens, especially when you are the product. You get, well, like, look at actors. It's especially child actors. Like, it's a crazy making thing to be like, I'm the product. I mean, that happened all the time. Like how difficult is it for you, ma'am, to literally come on,
post on Instagram? I know,
post on Instagram,
and I think that's where I see the differentiating line is between a lot of the current influencers who really are, to be honest, just in it to make an income, and it's not a way to make an income anymore.
No, it's not. I very much did not go into it thinking I would ever make the kind of income I ended up making. It was like just so exciting.
Yeah. I
But
mean, I remember just getting product was exciting at the time.
Oh my
We were
God.
like, oh my God. Right. Yeah.
That was an interesting thing. I wonder if does that still happen? Yeah, for sure. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there was a period of a few years where, so first they started with product, and they were considering, back in like 2010, they'd be like, "I'm going to send you the product." And I was like, "Yee!" And I would like write about it. And then I very quickly realized that like purses don't pay rent, and had to start being like, "Yeah." And it was very awkward having those conversations back then, because people were like, "Well, I sent you the thing." And you're like, "Well, yeah, but you had to actually explain that you also need money to live." And people like didn't compute for a while. It was really weird having to like justify your labor deserves value over and over and over and over. And then I basically was like, I cannot work I just can't, like, as a policy thing. But the amount of stuff that would arrive at my house on a daily basis, it was so exciting and it was so fun. And then it became so nauseating. And I look, none of us are above a free lip gloss, right? Like, that's fun. But I had to be like, I really need you to not do that. Like, please just contact my manager and pay me, because I feel disgusting. And it's showing me the lack of value, honestly, that all of these products have. They're worthless. They're worthless. They just throw them at people. And it's very hard for me to then turn around and say to a reader, no, like, you should buy this bag for $250 that I know for a fact is fundamentally worthless to them. You know?
Yes. Yeah.
I think a lot of the mom bloggers in maybe like 2012, 2013 did start because they were like, "Oh, I'm having a baby and I need stuff." All right. I don't know. I don't really see a problem with that, but people online sure did.
I mean, that's how I got started too. I was writing for Rookie Moms, and they would send me on free experiences with my son, and I was like, cool, I got to go to conferences and things, and I was like, I would never have gotten to try yoga class and all this stuff. And but I I think people don't know about you too, is that you weren't always just shooting for you. You did stuff for brands also on the side. So it wasn't like all the product was coming in like always for you. It was like that you were shooting content that brands were just hiring you to do content for.
Totally.
Right. So like, so, it was like double the amount of stuff, and
I remember when I worked for Q-tips, I was like, this is a lot of Q-tips. I did not need this many Q-tips in my house.
Right,
But
but
I
like,
actually
right,
did because I had to do
but
all these
you hired
layouts
a
and whatever.
photographer, right? Like
Hmm.
you had to learn creative design. You had to learn all of these things. Remember the age of the flat lay when we all had to learn how to do flat lays, like, and we got on
Yes.
ladders in our kitchen. I mean, like, come
Yes.
on.
Yes. The flat
Yeah,
lay. It was a
yeah,
learning curve. I remember
yeah.
when my agents I did not. I rejected Instagram, which I came to regret tremendously. I remember Something Navy. Remember Something Navy?
Oh
She's
yeah,
still, yeah.
yeah.
She and I did a Macy's runway show back in the day, and I didn't know who she was, and she was like, I just joined this thing called Instagram, and I was like, ugh, I can't deal with
Yeah,
new technology. And the women who joined in that very first second of Instagram, because
yeah.
everyone was just looking for people to follow, and I missed that wave, and whoopsie daisy, and it never
Well,
rebounded from that initial, like,
yeah.
for me it didn't. For me it didn't.
I
But
think a lot of bloggers didn't a lot of bloggers did not translate to Instagram in the same way.
no, and my agents. So I went on Instagram finally because my agent. We were at lunch, and she was like, "Give me your fucking phone," and I was like, "Why?" And she was like, "Because I'm downloading Instagram.
Yeah.
You have got to be on it." And I was like, "Meh." And then that turned into now you also have to be a model and a photographer, and I was like, "But I'm not a model and a photographer." And they were like, "Well, figure it out." And I remember some of the first posts. I flat laid my baby. I
Mhm.
I put my newborn daughter. I was like, I don't know what to take. I put her on a blanket, and I'm like doing above her
Uh-huh.
photos, and they were
Uh-huh.
really cute. And I was like, this is what I have to do now. This is
Yeah.
weird,
Yeah,
you
but do you
know?
remember that when they like literally whitewashed you when they wanted you to only post white?
Yes. Everything had to. That was a whole aesthetic, like circa
Uh-huh.
2014.
Uh-huh.
Everything had to be bright and white and faded and white backgrounds. That is that was so annoying. I
Yeah.
was trying to
I
think of
remember
something
that.
profound to say, but it was so annoying.
Well, it was control that it was the beginning of the control from the
Yeah,
outside world to you. And you had controlled that creative, hub
sure.
before that.
At this point, I think I would call you an influencer in your own right because of Fresh Starts Registry. Do you
Yeah.
identify with that title?
It's a good question, Jordan. No, I don't, but I also have been for like 20 years, like, in my own way. And so that's
Yeah.
the funny thing. I think I was the marketing director for Goo Goo Guru, which is a baby registry company. And so that coincided with my second son being born. So he was the Taco Bell baby. He was literally the Taco Bell baby because like we did a Taco Bell campaign and they were like, well, Wyatt is 5 months old, so why don't we use him? Like he was in the Domino's ads. Like, and so he tells people, he's like, I was the Taco Bell baby. So,
Wow.
he was one of the first DocuTot models. Like, so like it's funny because I don't consider myself an influencer, and yet I influence people. They buy what I say, they do what I tell them, they read what I read, but I would never consider myself that because I was always a couple steps on the outside. But
That makes
I
sense.
but now it's funny because since starting Fresh Starts and talking about everything, my account's grown. People know me.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
getting, I'm getting those messages now that people are like, "You may never read this," and I'm like, "But it's me. I'm
It's
sitting in my
me.
room. Like I'm here." But I think it's influencing. It's interesting that we need to figure out what does that mean, right, to be an influencer because like, I don't know, I've influenced a lot of women to get divorced. Does that make me
I
an
know, I was just
influencer?
about to say, I feel like I've done my job there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
You
Yeah,
can do it.
yeah. But it's
Yeah.
interesting because I think while I wouldn't consider myself an influencer, I got a lot of the same heat as an influencer, and my
Since Fresh Starts?
no, always. When I was the social media manager for a lot of different brands, this was
Mhm.
before social media really like anybody knew what to do with it. So they would say to me, "Can you basically be the person that is the face of the brand because you're the social media person?" Right? So I had to
Right.
learn, right? So like I had to learn how to do flat lays and video content and all this stuff. So I would be sent the very expensive diaper bags and shit like that. And then I would have to wear the maternity clothes, even if I wasn't pregnant, and like pose for them and stuff like that. I would go to the events. And so I became the face of like all these different things. And it was really weird. But my ex mother in law did not like that. Like, she didn't like that our family was like, in the spotlight ever.
Right,
And
exposed.
I
Yeah.
remember like there was a time that Newsday, because I'm on Long Island, did a piece about young families who had like bought houses. And I was like, well, let's be in it. Because like I don't say no to anything. And I always knew like I don't mind being in front of the camera. And so they did this whole piece about how we were a young couple with 2 kids and we bought a house. My ex mother in law did not like that. She was like, well, now they know how much your house was and now blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it really makes you think. Like, I remember even like, not to harp on my ex mother in law, but why not? When I was
Sounds like a great relationship.
it was at the time when I was blogging a lot, even that happened because I would write things like something as simple as like, and this happened to you too, I know, with people like my husband texted me from work, and then my mother in law at the time would be like, now his boss is gonna see that and like think
Yeah.
that he like right. So like little shit like that, it does weigh on you, and you don't like nobody else understands that.
When I think about when I stopped feeling as comfortable sharing everything,
Oh,
I shared like crazy in the wake of my divorce. And that was really a part of like the healing. Not that I'm healed, but that part of the process for me
right.
was I wrote more than I've ever written in my life. And I think it was some of the like, I think it was the best writing I've done.
I agree.
But thank you. But shortly after that, I was like, yep. And it coincided with COVID, yes. And but a lot of it was losing that safety blanket of my marriage. And I've realized that recently because I would say I would write something. I would try to think through how various people in my life would take it,
Right.
which is exhausting.
Yes.
But you really can't do that and write authentically. And I would make people upset all the time. I would call someone my best friend just as like, because
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, and my best friend and I went whatever.
Mhm.
Or I would have to like, or mention a vacation. And it's
Yep.
like, oh, you want a vacation? I thought, whatever. And, but having a husband to sort of buffer that, or at least make me feel like, well, at least he knows the truth and that I'm not trying to hurt anyone and all that stuff really helped. And then just being like kind of out in this world and writing about such vulnerable things with nobody to bounce back at you that you are an okay person, like you're doing okay, you're not all of these things.
Interesting.
I couldn't do it.
Interesting.
Truly.
Did your parents ever have anything to say about what you were putting on the internet?
Um, I think they were my mom is always very excited for whatever I do. She's just that kind of person. But my mother really struggled with the trolling.
Oh,
She I had to like basically sit on her to make her not go on these forums
yeah.
and
Yeah.
dress them down. I was like, Mom, that'll make it so much worse. So much worse. You cannot
Uh-huh.
do that. And then they'll come after you.
Yes.
No. But she was like, and she's a lawyer, so we definitely looked into like legal strategies and all that
Yeah.
stuff. And at the time, they were like, well, you're a public figure. And I was like, but not really. I mean, like,
Well, that's
kinda.
right.
But like I don't have bodyguards and millions of dollars. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Did it affect your marriage?
yes, yes, for sure. I think it helped us in some ways because if I was writing about something having to do with our marriage, even if it was a fight, we would talk about it. Like I would literally
Uh,
send him a draft and be like, what do you
Interesting.
think? And it was a weird therapy for us to like talk through. And he was like, oh, I see what you're saying here. I think it's more, and we would talk through it.
Oh,
But in the wake of our divorce, the extent to which he truly does not want me to talk about him. So I'm like even hesitant saying this, but
yeah.
but the extent to which he just like don't photograph me, don't talk about me. And I think it
Yeah.
was very traumatizing to have your life sort of filtered through the lens of another person's story. And I
Interesting.
really empathize with that. Like he was a character in this public facing story not the main
Yeah.
character. And that would be very strange. And definitely when I was writing about the divorce and I was trying to be like, this is just one way to
Yeah.
see what's going on. And I'm sure he has a different perspective, but still I'm the one with the voice and the platform. And
Yeah.
I think I would have killed me if I had been him. I would have been losing my mind.
I think it's interesting because when you think about like the writing you were doing, let's say, okay, it's not that different than like Nora Ephron, like writing about her life, right? Like there was always
No.
men to be written about.
They do a lot of things that deserve to be written about, but I think there's something different in that you had to seek out a Nora Ephron book.
Mm,
You had to go to the bookstore, be like, I want to experience this story, as opposed to having it like in your face
right, right.
all the time. Um,
That's true.
yeah. So
Yeah,
like he had
and there
his
was
mother-in-law or his mother reading my posts, his friends reading my posts and getting my
totally.
perspective. It's like, I think
Yeah,
that's different. I feel like there used to be so much stuff in person also, just speaking of going to bookstores, and COVID, well, we don't go anywhere in person anymore. And
not
that
really.
used to be one of the more fun elements to me, was like, I'm going into the city and I'm meeting up with my photographer and I'm doing this
Right.
thing and then I'm going to go to a meeting and then I'm going to go to host an event. And are influencers today doing that stuff, do you think? Or is it just all content created at home?
I don't think they're doing that much. No. I think that there are certain big events people still go to, but I don't think that there's like that element of, first of all, I don't think many people are hiring photographers anymore either. Like it's
Oh,
not like
no, you
no,
don't have
that's
to.
not
Yeah.
no. And I think like the iPhone camera now obviously that wasn't around. Like people didn't like you didn't have an iPhone camera. You had to have a big black fucking like real camera, right?
It's
Like
right
it was
here. It's covered in dust.
right, the
I
Canon.
carry this around all the
Yeah, me
time,
too, and that was,
everywhere.
like, my baby present was that was, like, a $900 Canon or something, it was ridiculous, like, and that's what we used for things, right, and so it's a very I wouldn't even call it the same industry now, I really wouldn't.
Thank you. I feel that way too. The
Yeah,
extent to which I feel like a dinosaur, and also trying to be like, prove that I was successful once to like these
right.
baby influencers. I had the most, this is so embarrassed. This is shameful to admit. I was taught, my friend's daughter is very successful influencer in like kind of the OnlyFans model, but she's just this beautiful girl who is a genius and has like just done this whole thing very
Yeah,
intentionally.
yeah.
And one day I was saying to her, I was like, oh, like, I like when I was doing Ramshackle Glam, and there was a large part of me that thought she would know who I was. She didn't know I was. And I'm like, but, wait, huh?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and why would she? Why would she? What I did then has almost nothing to do with what she does now. And yet it's where it came from. It's really a mind fuck a
You're
bit.
right, you're right, I would almost call you a writer, you've been a writer for 20 years.
That's what I call myself
That's
now.
what I would say, and I
Yeah.
think that you are a writer who almost did marketing, right, for certain brands. I wouldn't even call it influencer at that point. Whereas
Well,
now
it
they're
wasn't called influencer at
right,
that point.
right, and now there's, whole communities for influencers.
I think you had this like very academic, intellectual perspective on the whole thing very early on. Like you kind of saw what was going on. And I remember when that Time magazine article that I did, the title
Mhm.
was The Human Billboard,
Yeah,
because the word influencer didn't exist. And
right.
they were trying to come up with like, what do we call this person? I remember my
Billboarder.
agents freaked out because
Yep.
the whole thing was, you're not supposed to be seen as a shill, right? You're supposed
Yes.
to, you're
Shill, shill,
authentic,
shill.
but you're authentically loving these items. You're not a billboard, you're
Yeah.
you. And I was like, well, we're kind of a billboard, but they interviewed you, because I
Yeah.
remember they were like, can we
Yeah.
interview a reader? And I was like, Olivia,
Uh-huh.
but not because I thought you would like just say I was great, because I
Yeah.
knew you had perspective and were interested in this topic and like had a lot to say about it, and you did. um what did it feel like? Was that one of your first experiences of being like interviewed and
Yeah.
becoming part of a story?
Yeah. I think it was my very well,
I
probably
think
my
it was, if
first.
I recall,
Yeah.
I think it was. Yeah,
Yeah, and I had a blog at the time too. So my sister and I had a blog back then
I remember.
that yeah, and we were on the up and up also, and that's how, we started to interact with other bloggers, and we got product and stuff like that. And then we actually had a similar situation to you in that our website was taken, and the
That's right. It was
and so
hacked.
yeah, and so somebody stole the
Yes,
URL, and so it was like a death in the family, and so it
I remember.
destroyed us, and so we didn't resuscitate it in the same way, but we it was interesting because back then it was really the wild wild west of blogging. And Cosmo had a bunch of blogs, and they would have these people come blog for Cosmo. And basically, if you started to interact with these people, they would like quote you on Cosmo, and they would like start to like, you would just knew everybody. Like, that's why like people joke, they're like, Olivia, you know everybody. And I'm like, because I've been in the industry since it began. Like, and so, but I distinctly remember doing the Time Magazine interview because I was in my classroom. I was teaching, and I was like, I'm on the phone with Time Magazine for this girl Jordan that I like know and I'm friends with, but I've never met her. And like, it's like, and I think that that was a
How
turning point.
weird. That must have been
Yeah,
so weird.
it
I
it
mean, it
was
wouldn't be weird
weird.
now as much, but like
It
then,
was weird,
yeah.
and then to get to work with you was like even weirder. I remember just walking around being like, you were like the it girl. I mean, I don't know. It's very hard to explain to people because the time was so different, right? And like now it's just pervasive. But it's really
Mhm.
like it's like that movie where it goes from black and white to color, not The Wizard of Oz. Pleasantville. It's like
Yeah.
Pleasantville, right? And it's like, we were still in black and white. Like that was a totally different time. And now it's completely different. But you weren't just like shilling, which was the word everybody used to love for you,
Mhm.
for these things. You were actually like doing marketing for them. And I think that's maybe a
Correct.
little bit of a difference too between now and
That's
then.
interesting. So, how do you feel emotionally about your participation in this whole thing? Do you feel on balance? Do you feel good about it?
I do, because I do think that we get to put the money in the hands of women in a way that we would not have otherwise. And I've seen firsthand many women be able to get divorces, buy homes, retire their partners, whatever it is, because of the influencer economy. I I think there was a boom, and I don't think we're there anymore for many many reasons. And I think you know, it's so hard because back then it was a community. It was very much a community of people that
Yeah. We
it
all
was
saw each other at the same events.
right.
We all helped each other.
And you
Well,
had,
some of us did, but yeah, it was a
but the
community.
difference too was that blogs had comment sections. And so like we were interacting, so like Joanna Goddard and like all these people, like we were interacting in the comment section, we were making friends in the comment section, A Practical Wedding, and like all of these big commenting websites. And then that's gone. I mean, that's literally, nobody does that anymore,
No.
and so that was sad to me. Like there was like a loss there of community for sure.
Yeah.
But
That's really interesting.
yeah,
Substack is like kind of giving me new life in that way,
yeah,
but it's
yeah,
not.
it's not the
It's like a
same.
comment here, a comment there, and people aren't engaging. Readers aren't engaging with each other in the
No,
way that they
right.
definitely used to.
And I mean, I think to answer your question, generally speaking, I feel good about it. I'm happy I kind of left the influencer side when I did, which was mainly because of COVID and my own divorce also, because I just stopped posting also. Um, and it made me frustrated to see people, influencers who would, well, buying followers became a big issue, right? So influencers would buy 100,000 followers and demand thousands of dollars a post. And I think once I started to see that that was ridiculous and the gaslighting that went on behind the scenes, I didn't want to participate in that anymore. But I love marketing. So for me, anything that's an interesting marketing perspective is always going to light me up. And I'm proud of the work you've done and the work I've done. To You literally change the narrative of the way we speak about mental health and pregnancy and divorce. Like you did. I mean, like truly. Like, and even if we can help just a few women right through our journey with our writing, that's what matters. But I wouldn't be the writer I am without you. And I wouldn't be able to tell my story in the way that I write without watching you go through what you went through. And like you literally set the precedent for generations of women to write. And and it's not this, like you said, it's not the same as a book. And I think that that's a really important point to make.
Yeah, I miss it. I do miss it.
Yeah.
Like I'm glad I'm not doing that for a living anymore because honestly, I don't want people to take my photograph ever. I'm like,
Yeah.
absolutely not. No, thank you. I can't, I don't want attention. I feel silly. If,
Yeah.
uh, but, um, but God, it was fun.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
really a time.
Yeah.
Can you please tell everyone where to find you?
Absolutely. So I am the CEO of Fresh Starts Registry, which is the premier divorce support platform of vetted experts and resources and the only divorce registry in the world. And you can find me. My handle is at Olivia Howell. I respond to all DMs myself. I do not have a team. And no, I just appreciate you, Jordan. And, I think that this is a much bigger conversation, obviously, about the economy and women and feminism and motherhood and marriage. And it's an ever evolving conversation, whatever the medium is. Maybe we should just make it like watercolors next, or like
Ooh,
embroidery.
that
Yeah,
sounds great. Let's all just knit
exactly.
for the rest of our lives in our
I'm
commune.
here for it.
I adore you. Thank you so much.
Of course.